I'm being told this is not the whole graph. This isn't the whole graph. So we got the bottom 20%, the next 20%, the middle 20%, the next 20%. So this part here that shows the richest people in the country, that's not the whole top 20%? That's not the whole thing? Okay, this part here that shows how much better off rich people are, how much better off rich people are doing in terms of their income, that apparently only goes up to the 99%. We are missing the top percent. The graph is not complete. So if you want to know how the richest 1% of the country, the people who least need a pay raise in the country, how they've done over the last 30 years, we actually have to break that out separately because it distorts all these other numbers. Can we do that? Can we do that? Oh, yeah. Okay, whoa. That's just the top 1%. Income going like this, in general, that is already a problem because that means that poorer people are doing worse over time compared to richer people. And that's already a problem. That's already backwards. But this isn't just a problem. This is actually a whole new idea. Okay, graph time. It's actually get up and run to the big graph time. May I stand here? Okay. Ezra Klein made this. And this explains the whole big new idea in America. This is actually a map of the hole in the American dream. This is actually a map of the hole the American dream fell down, never to be heard from again. So this section here, okay, this section here, the late 1940s, around the end of World War II, okay, to the mid-1980s. To Ronald Reagan time. We got a lot of new economic policies starting Ronald Reagan time. That time, from about the end of World War II through to Ronald Reagan time, that is the American dream. This distance here, this is the American dream. Because this blue line is median income in America. And yeah, it wobbles a little bit, but it's basically going up. It is on a fairly steady climb. And this other line, this one, this line is the income growth of the top 1%, the richest people in the country. Now, their income from the end of World War II up until Reagan time is growing, but it is not growing as fast as the income of the rest of the country. And that's good, right? They're already doing great. They are the top 1%. They are already the richest people in the country. During the period that we can call the American dream, the richest 1% of the country is still rich. And in fact is getting richer over time. But they are not pulling away from the rest of the country. In fact, everybody is moving on up together. Yay for rich people and yay for everybody else too. But then starting here, starting in the mid-1980s, starting in Reagan time, it flips around. And the people who are already the richest 1% of the country, they cross over and they take off running. Getting richer way faster than everybody else, leaving everybody else behind. This is new. The red line being on top of the blue line, this is new. This is a new thing in America. The American dream was anybody can make it. That is no longer the dream. If you already have made it, sure, you can make it to the stratosphere. But if you are not already up in that top 1%, you are not going anywhere. That is new. That's not the way America used to be. And you know why that is, and you know what that is? That's policy. Policy matters. The CBO, in mapping this change over the last 30 years, where the top 1% richest people in the country have doubled their share of our national income, explained today that what has done this is policy. What happened to the American dream? Well, over these past 30 years, quote, the equalizing effect of federal taxes was smaller. Taxes stopped equalizing the benefits of living in our American economy and instead just started shoveling all the benefits up to the people who already had the most money. And the private sector followed suit. Frankly, executive pay went through the roof. Workers' pay, not so much. And
despite evidence that wealth disparity keeps increasing, some at the top are now arguing they've been unfairly singled out here. Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan, whose $10 million salary puts him squarely amongst the richest 1%, telling his employees that he thinks Wall Street bankers are really just a bunch of misunderstood do-gooders. He said, quote, I, like you, get a little incensed when you think about how much good all of you do, whether it's volunteer hours, charitable giving we do, serving clients and customers well. He addressed the ungrateful protesters by adding, you ought to think a little about that before you start yelling at us.
Again, this is not something that has been happening gradually over the lifespan of America as a country. This is something that's been happening gradually over the lifespan of me. This is something that has just happened in the last generation. This is a new thing in America. And if you ask Americans, Americans do not like it. The new New York Times CBS poll says 2/3 of Americans want wealth and income to be distributed more evenly in our country. 66% say they want that. Incidentally, there's also some really partisan news in that poll as well. When you ask Americans about whose interests the Obama administration is acting in, it's pretty evenly divided among people who think he's favoring the rich, favoring the poor, favoring the middle class, or treating everybody equally. But if you ask Americans that same question about Republicans in Congress, you get a very strikingly partisan answer. Only 9% of people think that Republican policies help the middle class. 69% of people say Republican policies, the policies of Republicans in Congress, help the rich. And again, the rich are doing great, really great. The rich are doing greater than they've ever done, ever. So today, waking up to this new data in the newspaper, the Republican Party put out its congressional budget guy, Congressman Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan, famous for his kill Medicare budget, right? Which a huge majority of Republicans voted for in Congress. To say that they put Paul Ryan out today on the day that this news breaks, to say that Democrats right now pushing more populist economic policies, Democrats wanting to repeal the Bush tax cuts for the richest people, Democrats, including President Obama, criticizing Republican policies for just helping the rich. Paul Ryan out today saying today that with that kind of rhetoric, Democrats are dividing the country.
Sowing social unrest and class resentment makes America weaker. The president is barnstorming swing states, pushing a divisive message that pits one group of Americans against another on the basis of class.
It is true that Americans are divided on the basis of class. The class division is between the top 1% and everybody else. But saying that, describing that, naming that truth, making a picture of it, saying that maybe we should try to fix that, that is not what has created the division. This division is real. It's new, and it is a shocking affront to the American dream. You know, a Goldman Sachs guy got arrested today. A guy who used to be a Goldman Sachs board member surrendered to the FBI today. He's connected to the guy from that billionaire hedge fund who got sentenced to 11 years in prison this month. There is a crackdown on illegal activity on Wall Street right now. But it's not a crackdown on the Wall Street activity you're thinking of. This guy who turned himself in today, he says he's not guilty. The Galleon billionaire hedge fund guy, that guy who just got sentenced, they got in trouble, or alleged trouble as the case may be for the guy who turned himself in today. But they got in trouble for an insider trading scheme. The same thing essentially that sent like Martha Stewart to prison, right? But the overall accountability issue of not just Wall Street crimes like we have always known, but the overall accountability issue of what Wall Street did when they blew up the entire economy, when they caused the man-made recession that we are in, which came from nowhere but Wall Street and the banks, that nobody has gotten in trouble for. That has all been negotiations and settlements and bailouts and back to bonuses. The only investigation into whether or not the biblical levels of irresponsibility on Wall Street might also have been criminal, the only investigation of that is being done by the states, by these crusading liberal attorneys general like Eric Schneiderman of New York. Attorney General, thank you for being here. I know you don't do a lot of interviews like this.
No, glad to be here, Rachel.
The big picture issue of housing and the continuing reverberations of the fiscal crash of 2008 are the biggest economic issues facing the country. There are also very obtuse partisan politics around these things. Do you think that Democrats have done well in responding to the mortgage crisis and the misbehavior of the banks?
Well, I think we've done some things. I think the president's move this week was a good step. I'm a prosecutor, and I took office in January, and Beau Biden, who's the Attorney General of Delaware, and I just thought we really needed to dig in a little bit deeper, and we were doing an investigation into what caused the bubble and the crash in the housing market, and it's really not all that obtuse. I mean, there are a lot of folks who are trying to rewrite history and paint it like it was a volcano or an earthquake, and that now we can move on to the problem of paying too much to cops and teachers and firefighters. This was a man-made crisis. It was created by regulatory neglect and greed, and I assure you, without telling you anything about secrets of our investigation, we have not found a trace of evidence that a cop, firefighter, teacher, or sanitation worker contributed to blowing up the American economy. So we're digging in, and we think we can do more. We think we're going to be able to obtain real, meaningful relief. There's 11 million Americans whose homes are underwater, not just in Arizona, but all across the country. We think we have to hold accountable the people who caused this disaster and just as important, as I say, we got to get this out in the open so they can't rewrite history. I mean, Mr. Romney's comments, we should just let things hit bottom. This is the same sort of deregulatory mania that they were dishing out in 2005 and 2006. That didn't work so well for the economy.
Did this catastrophe happen because as far as what you have been able to determine so far, because deregulation proceeded to a part where the banks to a point where banks could act legally in a way that was nevertheless dramatically fiscally irresponsible? Or are we looking at a case of potential illegal behavior, behavior that was against the law despite the fact that they had been so deregulated?
Well, that's why you have an investigation. There may well have been a combination of the two. There's no question that they dismantled a lot of the safety mechanisms that have protected our markets for a long time. But, you know, we're also looking at the conduct of individual institutions and individuals to see if there were misrepresentations made, to see if there was any fraud committed, to see if criminal acts were also a part of this. And that's what Bo and I are looking at, and we're determined to follow it through until we can get that relief that the homeowners need and hold accountable the people who caused this.
That issue of holding people accountable is a guttural instinct in American politics right now, particularly because we know that the fiscal crisis was a man-made crisis. We know that this was something that people did the wrong thing and thereby hurt the entire country. And the country is still paying, but nobody has paid for what they did. That's just a base, raw feeling that's driving the Occupy Wall Street protests right now. But I think it's also driving a lot of anger in the country, left, right, and center. You and Beau Biden have some jurisdictional opportunities here because of where institutions are incorporated that had a lot to do with these problems. Is there more that could be done at the federal level right now, starting now in 2011, that hasn't been done? Are there demands that should be made both of the administration and the Congress in terms of ways they can hold Wall Street accountable?
Well, it's challenging for the president because the Republicans in Congress have essentially openly declared they'll do things that they know hurt the American people just to prevent him from getting a win. But as you say, we do have jurisdiction because the mortgage-backed securities that brought down the country were all issued out of New York Trust or Delaware Trust. We're pursuing it, and you're absolutely right. A lot of folks look at Occupy Wall Street and the other occupations and think that they're fringe characters. I hear the same sense that we don't have one set of rules for everyone anymore, that people are not held accountable for misconduct. From every average American you run into anywhere else, in a community hall meeting, in a diner all over New York State, I'm sure all over America, there is a sense that equal justice under law is no longer the rule for this country, and we got to get that back. I mean, as much as the economic damage is terrible, for Americans to lose the sense that this is a country where law governs and you're not above the law, and you're not below the law. I mean, you know, the law applies to everyone. The sense of accountability is one of the key motivators for our investigation. And there are other AGs who are coming our way. I think there are actually going to be quite a few investigations before this is over.
As New York State's Attorney General, am I right that your office is quite near the Lower Manhattan Occupy Wall Street encampment?
It is, right across the park.
When you look, from what I hear you saying right now, my sense is that when you look at those folks out there protesting every day, you have some sympathy for what they're doing.
I see them as a part of they're the tip of a much bigger iceberg. I spend a lot of time traveling around the state. I have 13 regional offices, and I assure you that if anyone who thinks the American people have gotten over their anger at the bubble and the crash, over their sense of betrayal, that the fundamental American idea of equal justice under law has, really been let go by the wayside, they're wrong. People are mad, and people want, not because they're hostile or vicious, they just want to know there's one set of rules for everyone. And I don't hear that much different in most of the Occupy Wall Street folks from what I hear everywhere else in the state as I travel around.
New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, thank you for taking the time to talk to us tonight. Again, I know you don't do this often, and I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And I would just say that in terms of looking at accountability issues and Wall Street and where Occupy Wall Street goes and that feeling in the country, keep an eye on New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and also Delaware Attorney General Beau Biden. Set Google alerts on these guys. Just watch what they do.